What a great video. Hey everybody, Dawn Zoldi here. I am the CEO of P3 Tech Consulting and also your fearless host here for the Dawn of Autonomy podcast. We are rounding out an incredible month that we had dedicated to this theme of dual use technologies, sponsored by Fixar. And this particular show, we have Dedrone here with us, Josh Strange, and you can see his logo up there. Hey, Josh, it says Dedrone by Axon. So that's kind of a new thing. We're going to get into all of this, get you all the latest updates on what's been going on with Dedrone. Josh, but before we do that, can you please just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you for the time and thank you for having us, Don. It's a pleasure. As you indicated, my name is Josh Strange. I'm one of our directors for Dedrone. I've had the pleasure of being in the industry for a little over 6 years now. And as you mentioned earlier, Dedrone, now by Axon, been successfully part of 2 acquisitions. So very exciting times over here. Ultimately, through these years in the industry, I've gotten to work with a ton of different verticals, whether that's sporting stadiums, live events, correctional, government, law enforcement, and really just watched the industry blossom. You know, Don, about 6 years ago when I started, a lot of these conversations were trying to prove to customers that drones were going to be a security challenge for them. And a lot of it was the naysaying, nah, they're just toys, it's not a big deal. Well, fast forward today to what we see developing in Ukraine, to what we see, locally happening with drone usage for unfortunately nefarious purposes. It's no longer that discussion. The market has caught up to where, reality is today. So definitely excited to join you and talk a bit more about what Dedrone's doing in this space.
No, I absolutely agree 100%. And, we saw the video, you've just alluded to it, but I'll ask it anyway, Josh. Just kind of give us that 30-second elevator pitch of what Dedrone is really all about.
Yeah, so Dedrone, we are a dual-use technology company. So ultimately, we are the global leader in manufacturing drone detection solutions, but also the leading integrator in this space. And what's really unique about Dedrone is we created a UI with an open ecosystem to really allow us to be sensor agnostic, to bring in not only Dedrone's state-of-the-art tools, but manufacturers such as Echodyne or Matrix, like we were talking about earlier today, and really setting up an environment in which all of these tools can play very well together and have a true layered solution. So Dedrone, ultimately we're doing this locally here on a civilian and public side, but also on that dual use side, we're also very much integrated within our own federal government here, as well as some of the things that we've been helping out with the Ukrainian military during their time of conflict as well. So it's been exciting. So I would generally say that we are the global leader in all things counter drone. But an exciting announcement that we had this week with our FAA approval on our BVLOS or Beyond Visual Line of Sight solution. I think you're going to see a lot more activity from us on the drones for good side of business too, enabling these law enforcement agencies to use drones and get them out there first. If you could imagine, Don, imagine a world now where we live where there's some kind of incident, maybe somebody's pulled a gun on someone at a park, whatever the call comes in and be, instantly a drone launches from a roof, beelines directly straight line, whatever the altitude needed to that scene, and getting eyes on for the officers so they know exactly what they're heading into, maybe what side of the park they should be entering on so they have the best vantage point to stop this incident. Just, I see a future where we have incidents happening and you're going to see drones flying a beeline above you and thinking, uh-oh, what's going on over there? So it's an exciting time.
Yeah, well, it makes sense. And of course, you're referring to drone as first responder or DFR, and Josh, I've been saying this for years, counter drone is really the yin to, drone yang, right? Like you can't really have ubiquitous drone operations if you don't have that situational awareness in the sky and you don't have the ability, if needed, to, remove people that shouldn't be there, right? Like an actor, whether it's clueless, careless, criminal, as you mentioned, combatant, you need to be able to do this whether you're in the military or on the civilian side. So, we're seeing more and more of this. Now, Josh, you kind of walked us through a little bit about an evolution in the UAS industry from your perspective, with which I agreed. I'd love to hear your perspective a little bit on the evolution of the company Dedrone over the years. I mean, you've had many milestones since the inception, and more recent. You know, you mentioned a couple, but if you could kind of walk us through some of those, that'd be great.
Yeah, so a number of years ago, I want to say it was about 8 years ago, got our start in this industry. German-based company originally, and a couple of guys had a really good idea of, why aren't we solving this airspace security problem? So put their heads together and came up with, our first solutions and our first software. I believe it was a significantly smaller company at that point. Fast forward all the way to today, I believe we're over 160 plus strong. We have offices in not only Germany, but the UK, Virginia, Arizona, San Francisco. And we've, really blossomed from not just doing detection, but doing optical with video so that you can actually see what that drone's doing from your
Yeah.
command center, mitigation systems, and, not just surgical or tactical, but we're working on some new kinetic options. So I mean, during this, it's been a fun ride. I think what you've seen is that there were a ton of competitors in this space a few years ago, and you're starting to see the consolidation of these firms into like ourselves. So, I personally came from a company called Aerial Armor. We were acquired by Dedrone about 2.5 years ago as part of a strategic acquisition. And what I saw there was the blending of two organizations with the same mission and goals, that were servicing really two different types of clientele, and blending them together has really brought the best of both worlds. And we've seen that, in the last 2 years since that acquisition, we've really been on a meteoric rise with our market share growing. And then today, as you mentioned, so October 1st, it was official. Axon has always been a very active player with Dedrone, but as of October 1st, we have been acquired by Dedrone. So we are Dedrone by Axon. And we truly believe that this will help enable us to meet our goals and empower public safety, law enforcement, et cetera, much more rapidly than we're already doing with this partnership.
Yeah, I mean, I agree also. You're seeing a lot of consolidation across the industry, and it makes sense. I think we're all better together, and when people are doing pieces and parts, and then you can offer a holistic, solution to people. It's just right. It's the easy button, and it just makes sense. But you kind of walk through some of the evolution here, but I want to brag on Dedrone for a second. You guys have won many awards along the way, reached many milestones. In fact, just this year, you all were achieved the I guess the recognition as one of the best places to work.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you've launched this year Dedrone on the Move, which we're going to talk about here shortly. You received the Department of Homeland Security Safety Act Award. So that was just this year alone. So congratulations on all of those things. I mean, it's been a busy year with the acquisition, and then racking up all the hardware, if you will, in terms of award trophies. So super cool, super cool.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump into the products, because you have so many things going on, and we're just kind of walk through them one by one. And let's start with some of your key ones and their different functionalities. Let's look at Dedrone's Citywide first.
Absolutely.
What is Citywide?
Perfect. Great question. So Dedrone Citywide, the simplest way I can explain this is imagine a Verizon-esque cell network in a city or town, but replace Verizon with Dedrone and replace cell network with drone detection network. And essentially what we did was we created and built out these networks within over 50 US cities. I believe that number is a little bit higher today. And essentially what it does is it enables an organization, a user, a VIP to subscribe for an annual software or a data as a service subscription. So what we found is that's a tremendous benefit to organizations or individuals that maybe don't have the resources to fully stack their properties or their office or area they're trying to secure with a full layer of tools. So this gives them an affordable option to essentially dip their toe in, see some of the traffic. Admittedly, that is only going to solve a specific portion of what's in the sky, as it only does DJI with that product. But what we found is it's a great introductory product for someone that maybe isn't doing anything to control their airspace or monitor what's happening in there. It starts to illuminate essentially what's going on in the sky. Don, I think that a lot of people that I meet with initially, they say they don't have issues with drones, right? And as you know, once these things are 200, 300, 400 feet in the sky, unless you're staring in the sky in a specific spot, they're really hard to see, and you're generally not hearing them once they're up that high as well.
True.
Uh, so what we found is when we bring in these systems that can detect these flights happening, and we start to paint the sky with red lines going everywhere with flights over their property, it really opens their eyes. And that's a tremendous product to start with, because there is no installation, there is no needing to be on your network, so having to get all the IT approvals and things that come with that. It's a great introductory product for a lot of clients.
Oh, all right. Very, very good. Now, you mentioned kind of painting your own facility, if you will, or stacking your own facility with equipment to be able to see very specifically what's around your area. Is that what Dedrone fixed site is all about?
Correct. So fixed site is generally more, essentially what it's saying in the title, right? Fixed site. So these are going to be like correctional facilities, power plants, refineries, a lot of like our law enforcement that have specific corridors in cities that they want to monitor. And this can be a combination of sensor types. I think just taking a step back, what's really important about Dedrone is that we truly believe there's not a silver bullet solution in this industry to detect 100% everything. And what I mean by that is that whether you have 50,000 or 50 million today, you're not going to be able to buy one type of tool and do it all. And what we recommend is through sensor fusion, layering these technologies together to remedy whatever that personal customer is seeing. So generally we start out with RF or radio frequency sensors, which
Okay.
is going to be the hallmark of that Dedrone fixed site. And that's going to pick up on any drones that are emitting a RF signal back to a remote controller, which is most of them. And from that, we can get a lot of information, telemetry data, where the flight originated from, the type of drone, and it does a really good job. For a lot of fixed site customers that have issues with maybe dark drones, while it's rare, it does happen. That's where
And
we'll
for
integrate.
everybody, for Josh, not everybody might know what a dark drone is. Can you briefly explain that and then kind of
Absolutely.
continue on? I apologize.
Not a problem at all. Thank you for stopping me. So a dark drone would be essentially, it's a pre-programmed drone. So it is fully autonomous. There is no person or pilot controlling that flight. They've programmed this flight to happen from the landing to coming back, and then loaded it into the drone. Because there is no connection between that drone and the remote controller, therefore there is no RF signals to be able to pick up on, triangulate on, and this is
Right.
where that concern comes in. So that's where we work with one of our partners, whether it be Echodyne or obviously notably Matrix Space, to bring in radar solution to track really all motion. And then, the problem with radar, generally speaking, is that the false positives, while it brings tremendous benefits of tracking, the false positives are generally a big trade-off. Well, Dedrone has seen millions and millions and millions of drone flights, and we've trained our AI and our machine learning to be able to sift through that data and truly tell you what looks more like a drone and what's not actually a drone and what's unverified. And then from there, we would layer on our PTZ or a camera solution, and this is really, I think, the golden ticket, because now if you're managing an event, not only can you see, one, we have a drone that's just entered the perimeter, but two, they're just loitering, being an idiot, or God forbid there's a payload attached. And that's where we
Right.
now know the risk profile needs to jump dramatically to how you respond to that. So
Okay. Wow. That's amazing. Okay. Yeah. I mean, sensor fusion is the way to go, right? You're always going to, I think for the most part, is kind of multi-layered, as we used to call it in the Air Force, multi-layered defense. It clearly applies to the drone world, right? What's coming from the air for sure. But it's not just the fixed sites or kind of this more citywide system that you've set up. you guys more recently, and I think it was this year, we just talked about that, released the mobile drone detection unit or rapid response. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, so I mean, that all came about by really meeting our customers where they're at and where they need these solutions to operate for them. So if you can imagine, a fixed site's a great solution for a prison that's never moving, right? But an operation like a sheriff's office or emergency management that are putting out events or have to be quite mobile, it really wasn't ideal. So among our other portable solutions, we did create this rapid response trailer. It's been very effective. It is an all-in-one unit that essentially will hook to your truck or whatever vehicle you have to tow a trailer. It's all in one. So there's a generators, there's fuel tanks, so you can run it for multiple days. We have an electric 44-foot tall mast. So some of the things that we don't really think about it on the initial stages is what does it take to actually install a system, high building tops, power sources, all of the data connections, all of these little things that after you decide this is what we're doing, you now have to figure out. Everything is built directly into this trailer, so you don't need to figure that out. You can essentially roll it out to an incident that's happening and within 20 minutes have it up and running and have a pretty thorough network.
So this could be added on to like a mobile command post kind of thing
Correct.
too. Okay,
Absolutely.
well, all right, great. And so the counter drone piece of it just trailing right behind. But what if I'm on foot, Josh? What if I don't have a big trailer or a
Sure.
big vehicle to hitch this thing to? What am I doing then?
Yeah, so we do have Dedrone Portable, and that is essentially sensors set up with tripods or karaoke stands, considerably nicer than karaoke stands, of course, and Pelican cases. And essentially, when you know that you're heading out somewhere, this is where you opt to bring in, Pelican case 1 or Pelican case 1, 2, and 3, whatever that ends up being.
Okay, and then you also have is the Dedrone tactical part of the portable? In other words, the portable is tactical, right?
It can be. Dedrone Tactical is a product in itself. So this was initially designed for our federal government as well as the Ukrainian military. This is the entire kill chain solution. So we not only have detection, RF, radar, visual confirmation with the PTZs, but we do have the ability to surgically mitigate drones with that system. So a customer that's using that can not only be, aware of what's happening in their airspace at any time, but they can also, when it's needed, take over that drone and ultimately mitigate it, bring it down, divert it from wherever it's heading that they don't want it to head to. So really great tool there. And we've seen a lot of success with that.
Yeah, so in terms of, we have this image here, expeditionary, focused on the defense side of dual use. Both the portable and the tactical fit into that expeditionary mindset when it comes to soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, guardians, and the things they might need on the move.
Absolutely. And that's probably an excellent segue into our other product, which is called Dedrone on the
On the
Move.
move.
So
Yeah.
that also was developed really with those core concepts in mind. We needed we needed the ability for them to not only have, the Pelican cases where they set up the tripod, but a lot of times in an active, let's call it what it is, a war zone or battlefield, things are not static very often. They're moving around quite often, and we needed to be able to equip them with a solution that could be mobile. So Dedrone on the Move utilizes not only RF antennas, but as you're seeing there, we can mount our jamming gun to work in tandem with that system. So while you're driving down the desert or wherever you are heading and trying to get to where you're going, we're able to keep those troops secured from these drones. And I'm sure everyone has seen those videos, unfortunately, online, whether it be Ukraine on Russia, Russia on Ukraine, where they're chasing vehicles down and essentially bombing them with a drone, right?
Yeah.
This is a very real thing. It's not just in LinkedIn videos, and so this is a solution really driven by helping secure situations like that.
So Josh, you have the on the move, the vehicle mounted solution, and then you've got this rapid response mobile drone detection unit. What is the mobile detection unit more for um let's just say homeland type, so use cases, or in other words, what's different between those two other than size and like
Yeah,
where you're either towing it or mounting it in terms of functionality and then use case for those out
absolutely. So the rapid response trailer, if you think about it, it is mobile, but once you go to actually set it up, it's pretty fixed.
there? Okay.
Once you have that masked up, you're not moving it around at all during the event. Maybe to get like better coverage once, but not constant. Whereas Dedrone on the Move is completely designed with compasses involved to have you moving constantly, and being able to secure you with that. So that would be, I'd say, the initial difference.
Okay.
Second to that would be the hardware stack that we can bring, or the additional layers. So on the
Yep.
rapid response trailer, you can see in some of our videos, it has RF, it has radar, and it has PTZ all together in that. So
Right.
you really have three different layers working together. Whereas on the Move situation, at the moment it's just RF. I could certainly see that developing and becoming more of that full suite as well, but that's where it is today.
Okay, Roger. And we've been using an acronym, and I just, I'm kind of sensitive to that, having been in the military
Apologies.
myself.
Good.
PTZ, pan, tilt, zoom
Correct.
cameras. That's what we're talking about there. For those that didn't know, not everybody might know that. And then, since we're kind of rolling through all the different products you have, let's talk a little bit more, and then we'll dive deeper into some different aspects. Let's talk a little bit more about the DFR, drone as first responder enablement, that you guys have really focused more on more recently.
Absolutely. So this is really exciting for us. As you indicated earlier in the week, it was announced that FAA had approved our DFR deployment at Campbell PD. Extremely exciting for multiple reasons. As I mentioned earlier in the call, imagine a situation where we're not sending law enforcement officers blindly into a situation. They're not arriving, maybe into a threat situation that, you know, really is going to be a kind of just an uncomfortable, a bad situation. What this allows us to do, or really law enforcement agencies to do, and it's not just them, so I'll touch on that in a second, but really with law enforcement agencies, getting that drone to launch the moment a call comes in, getting eyes on, feeding that into 911 dispatch as well as the command center, seeing exactly what's happening on the ground so that maybe you bring the right personnel, maybe you approach from a different angle. There's so many variables to that make it a win-win or a force multiplier. But then also think about not just law enforcement. We're working with a lot of fire departments, right? Whether that be surveying a gas leak or a fire leak, or whether that's search and rescue even, right?
Right.
There are extreme limitations to what public safety people can actually do with drones. And I think to the people that aren't in this space, Don, they think, oh, yeah, law enforcement cops, they just fly their drone wherever they want, whenever they want, right?
Right.
And that's not the case. There are rules and things like that. So with this product, we're extremely excited to be the first company that has a FAA radar approved solution. Thank you very much. It's not to say that there weren't some other innovators in this space earlier. We had Iris Automation, as you mentioned earlier, great company, but that was a visual or optical only solution, and it did have limitations. So with the radar solution, this is going to enable beyond visual line of sight flying, not just in daytime, but in night. Obviously, in weather, I think people might be refraining from flying in blizzards and things, but who knows? But it enables them to really be empowered over their city or their area that they want to effectively, help and run a program with this on. From a
Yeah,
cost.
and
Go
Josh,
ahead.
if I just could jump in for 1 second, just to be clear, everybody, also, this product's called Drone Beyond. This is not, what we often talk about, a drone in a box solution. This is the technology that enables those other solutions to then get the approved, the people that operating or launching those other solutions to fly beyond visual line of sight, to get those FAA approvals to fly, outside of the sight of the a visual observer or the remote pilot. So really critical component in this BV loss journey that everybody's on, quite frankly, Josh, not
Right.
just, of course, public safety, whether it's law enforcement, as you said, firefighters, people, there's private companies actually in these
Utilities. Yeah.
search and rescue utilities. So this is a product that, when you think about dual use, and you think about the commercial side of it, so many different potential stakeholders could benefit from this solution.
Agreed. Agreed. And really, the system, just to further onto your point about what this does, is it really allows them, the ones that are trying to do the drone in the box or do these operations, it allows them the airspace awareness, as you were mentioning earlier, to really deconflict and know, all right, this is our drone, but who the heck's drone is that? That's really close to ours. Or
Right.
just an example yesterday, last couple nights ago, I'm in my backyard. We have the police helicopter not too far off, and I see somebody in a couple neighborhoods over launch their drone. You can see it from my house, and they're literally matching the helicopter's flight pattern as they're flying around, maybe 50 feet underneath them. So the ability to know not only are there other drones in your airspace, but we actually have registered or manned aircraft going on in your area as well that we want to deconflict. Yeah, just very exciting times, and I think it's going to be a fun ride over the next few years with this.
No, it will absolutely, absolutely. So I want to take a second, Josh, and talk about the kind of these two sides of the coin, the dual use. We'll talk about military, and then let's talk about commercial. Let's talk the defense side first.
Sure.
When you think about this now, this entire suite of products that we just kind of walked through, can you give us some, appropriate, because I know sometimes people are hot, they're very sensitive about talking about what they're employing, right, downrange. But could you give us a use case, whether it's, one where you can actually mention a real world incident, or, just kind of more generically, this is how in general it's being employed on
Absolutely.
the military side.
Okay, on the military side, yes. So we do have several partnerships within DHS and a number of agencies that we're working with. A lot of them I won't be able to get into the nitty-gritties on,
Yeah.
but from a protective standpoint, there are multiple different levels of government that we're helping secure or at least assisting with our solutions. On military bases, it's allowing them to, monitor what's coming near their bases that maybe shouldn't be coming near. This
Yeah.
became kind of a hot topic when we had the weather balloons flying all over the U.S. and
Oh my gosh, I know. It's crazy, right?
kind of had a joke. Hey, with drone detection, we also offer balloon detection.
Yeah,
But
weather balloons. Yeah, I'm doing air quotes around the word weather. Yeah,
that's
right.
craziness. So, and then when you scale this over onto the theater application, with the Ukrainian side, this is detecting, having that front line, being aware of exactly when, a Russian drone or a drone has entered their airspace, so that they can do or act accordingly, right? The ability to mitigate these drones and actually jam them or take them down. This is a very complex environment, as you can imagine. With anything, once they have realized that a certain thing has stopped working, they start to innovate, right?
Yeah.
We've seen a ton of this over the last few years, but it's also put us in a really unique spot to work with them so that the moment a new drone or a new type, whether it be Shahed or some of these other drones that they're using over there, we can now take those down drones and start to teach our system on how to actually be smarter in the future to learn from those systems or learn how to detect them. So yeah, I mean, there's a ton of different ways the military or the government are using these systems, but ultimately it's just in building up airspace awareness. I think that everybody, as I indicated earlier, is caught up to that today. I think I was mentioning earlier, there are numbers of stories popping up. Earlier in the seasons, it was game stoppages for NFL or MLB where drones were flying over the stadium and they were having to stop the game live on TV. Whether it be the guy in New Jersey that had a pool cleaning company and he decided business is bad, Don, so I'm going to fly my drone over this neighborhood and start dropping green dye into pools.
Are you? I didn't read. Only in Jersey, right? Only in Jersey. I didn't know about that one. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. Yep, New Jersey State PD was using our system and was able to apprehend and catch the guy in the act, but not before he gained a few new clients.
Wow.
And then recently here home, because this one's close to home in Phoenix, just 2-3 days ago, an article came out. The feds swarmed in on a home here in Peoria, a 17-year-old ISIS-inspired Individual had been sent instructions on how to order material off Amazon to make explosives, indicating in chat rooms that he was intending on putting these explosives on a drone and flying them over the Phoenix Pride Festival in the next few weeks and unleashing mayhem. Fortunately for all of us, certain person felt braggadocious in chat rooms where the federal team was able to pinpoint on him, and luckily they stopped before anything got to that case. But it just makes you think how much these drones can really enable some bad stuff,
Yeah,
and people flying to it. It's
look,
not an answer.
sadly, the just like the drones for good use cases that you
Right.
mentioned, Josh, are only as limited as one's imagination. So too are the drones for bad stories that can actually occur, right? What were
Right.
you and I talking about before the show? You said there was like something that happened this week.
So that was one of them that happened this week, and then another one, if you Google, I believe it was over the Boston Celtics or something opening outside. They're having a big event near the stadium, and a drone came down and injured like 4 people. It fell out of the sky, just destroyed somebody's hand. I think in further reading though, Don, I ended up learning that it was a commercial drone. It was like a news organization's drone that came
Ah,
down. But
oh my gosh, that is awful. That is terrible. And
yeah,
of course, well, this raises a great point. So we kind of actually just started dipping into the commercial uses and some of the homeland stuff. But you just raised a point, and you mentioned artificial intelligence and kind of smart technology. Um, you know, eh, can your tech distinguish, for example, not just is this a bird or a drone, but can it distinguish between, for example, a media drone that would be protected under the First Amendment and hopefully won't fall out of the sky, and some other drone in a particular area, like say around a stadium, like we just talked about?
I mean, in an ideal world, the user is going to have friendly drones notated in their system so they can manage and track those.
Yep.
And they can differentiate between known or unknown drones or unauthorized drones.
Yep.
So ideally, if they had gone through, they would have put that media drone's information into their system. They'd still see it flying, and then they would see if there was any traffic flying around them. But that is an input, right? So a customer has to end up putting that information in on that drone first, and then it'll identify that as, say, a media drone, hypothetically.
Well,
But
what about, Josh, like remote ID right now? Theoretically, everybody is supposed to be compliant right now in
right,
terms of squawking out, who they are,
right.
like whether it's, their registration number, their location, things like that. Is that all integrated into your system as well, the remote ID information or the data?
Absolutely. So remote ID is ingested into our software as well. And it'll actually show you if it's information coming just from our triangulation or maybe our radar system, or if it is in fact remote ID information coming through. As you indicated, the majority of new drones have been built with this pre-installed into it now. There are certain drones that are older or legacy drones where you can buy an attachment to put on your drone.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
module. Yeah.
exactly. And that's what like you or I are going to do, or the majority of people trying to do things on the up and up are going to buy the module. But as we know, there are going to be millions that do not, of
Right.
drones that don't have this. So while layering in that information is certainly important, our nefarious actors are certainly not broadcasting remote ID information.
Roger that. Now, I want to talk about your AI for a second, Josh. Obviously, so many people say, hey, we've got AI, we've got AI. I mean, AI is, can be very nuanced in terms of what data is training it. And
Mhm.
so I guess my question is, how is your AI trained? Is it trained on like every operation, or if say I'm working with a prison, hypothetically,
Mhm.
uh, can I train it on my own data, like what I'm collecting around me, what I'm inputting into it directly, so it's more of a closed system, or is it open, or can it be both?
Can be both. So you can do what we'd call like on-prem, which is completely closed. You run your own servers on your correctional facility. There's certain limitations on an on-prem system that I generally, if I can advise you against it, I do, whether it be
Mm,
from updates and things like that. Just it makes it a lot easier to keep you up to speed with everything that's newest instead of
yeah.
having to schedule me coming out every month for the update or whatever it be.
Oh, I see.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
but we can certainly do that. When it comes to AI and ML, and I don't want to over talk because I'm certainly not the technical side of our team. But I think where it comes into is going to be the radio frequency detections, the radar detections, and the camera tracking, and ultimately feeding all that in to teach our system more and more of what these actual drones do, what they look like when they're in the sky, what a drone carrying a payload looks like, and maybe what its flight pattern looks like that differentiates. And then radar, I think it's hugely important to have these tools because a radar without those is going to literally annoy the heck out of you, Don. You're going to
Yeah,
have,
it would be like a million things it would probably pick up. Yeah.
correct. You'll have it to the point where at a certain point you'll mute it and because you'll have alert fatigue and then you end up missing the one that really mattered. Right.
Yeah.
So with our AI and machine learning, taking these millions of flights and allowing them to real time match them up to what we're seeing on radar tracking,
Hmm.
I think that's probably one of the biggest benefits to what we're doing there. Is that we want you to track real flights, and when there's a real concern for you to know about it and be able to respond quickly with the right information. So.
Awesome, awesome. Now we talked a little bit about radars, and radars have limitations. Do you guys have short and long distance radars that you're working with, like a full, yeah, for shorter and long range?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I indicated earlier, we have actually a number of radar manufacturers that we work with, and we're always kind of evaluating some of the new up and comers as well. There's different solutions, whether it be for, let's say, a prison that is just looking for short term, I need my perimeters protected, to someone that is looking maybe for, I don't know, let's call it. A chemical plant or a much larger facility, right?
Yeah.
So yes, we do have both. There are benefits and pros and cons to really both sides of this, but you have to have that long range. Otherwise, you're talking about just to cover a property like your correctional needing 5, 6, 7 plus different radar nodes as opposed to having maybe one long range radar node. So whether that's through matrix space or Echodyne or spotter, we ultimately are working with both. And I think that, just to layer back into the drone as a first responder or Dedrone beyond, that's the same thing there. So we have a short range radar solution, and then, roughly 1 to 3.5 kilometer radiuses. And then we have our longer range radar solution, which is giving us a radius of about 11 kilometers. So yeah, so both.
Now, and then you layer on top of that oftentimes this PTZ camera.
Correct.
So you can really visually then confirm that, all
Correct.
right, this radar's picked this thing up, and now I can slew the camera to this and say, yep, it is that thing that shouldn't be here.
Absolutely. And beauty of the tool is that it's all autonomous. So the moment the radar or RF system says, hey, Don, I see a drone north side of your prison, camera does all of its own work to point, tilt, zoom. So it's going to get the coordinates from our detection system and say, you need to be pointing directly here. And when it does that, it'll lock onto it and it'll fully do its own tracking as it moves around your property. Yeah, the biggest benefit there is knowing, as I mentioned earlier, what's the threat level. For correctional facility, this is a little different, right? Is there a payload attached or contraband that's coming into the facility that we need to see? And you can pretty clearly see that on these drones. They don't try to bring in, 2 cigarettes on a drone. It's generally a
Bringing in
significant pay.
cartons. Those things are
Exactly.
for thousands of dollars in a prison. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, it's a significant payload, whether that's drugs, whether it's cell phones, weapons. We've kind of seen it all, as you can imagine, being in this industry.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that, to be sure. I want to talk for a second about effectors, meaning, when an organization like DHS, as an example, has the authority, which, by the way, everybody, we all know that's limited right now. And we're hoping Congress is going to change that, but I'll get off my soapbox
Right.
because our local law enforcement doesn't have the authority to mitigate drones that could be a threat. Um, the effectors that you have, do you have the full range? I think you mentioned lasers. Now we're not maybe going to be using these in the homeland, so I'm going to conflate, all the effectors just in general.
Hmm.
Uh, but also, do you have a way? Do you guys have cyber takeover? Do you have like the full range, or like what are the specific ones you guys kind of a net? There's so many different ones out there, Josh. Can you integrate any of those into your system, I guess is my question.
Answer directly to that is yes.
Okay.
As long as the manufacturer is willing to play ball as well, then yes,
Yep.
absolutely. Which most of them are.
Yeah.
Um, so when it comes to like the tools that we have, I'm more on the approach of being more surgical and tactical about your mitigation. That is, as you indicated, whether it be a RF takeover of the actual drone, whether it be jamming the drone and stopping it dead in its track with, say, our effectors or our guns. I think the two products that we've built out would be Dedrone Defender, which is our smart jamming gun.
Okay.
So the idea behind this is that you're emitting a stream of RF signal at that drone, and it is breaking that link between the drone and the remote controller, therefore doing a number of things. It could either return that drone to home if that's how it's programmed. You can essentially grab onto it and like Ghostbusters pull it down into your trash can or whatever you want to do.
Yeah,
Right?
you don't have a little box that
I
you
was
close
gonna say
and
it,
then
yeah.
stick in the wall.
Better stomp on the pad to open it.
Yeah.
You can do that, which is an affordable option. You're definitely under the six-figure price point with the jamming guns. More surgically, Dedrone Tactical, I think we mentioned earlier, this is the one that would have that takeover system built into it, so that you can actually take that drone over and have it land at a predefined location or take it down. Then you have your other options, which are going to ultimately be, products that are kamikaze drones, nets, birds. These are more like your kinetic options. And we're developing one in-house now. We have partnerships with several of the kinetic mitigation companies out there, so we can certainly integrate them. But this is now, ultimately a different type of technology, right? We're taking down the drone
Yeah.
or blowing it up or whatever it be. So certain environments, I think that that's a really great tool. War zones, great, right? Deserts, open environments, great. Downtown DC,
Not
we don't
so
want
great.
we don't want to
Not
blow
so
things out of the sky and have it coming down on people,
so
So
great. Yeah,
yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. Wow. All right. So much going on. It's really hard to keep track. I know you guys have a great website. So I would commend everybody out there to check out Dedrone by Axon's website and see this kind of full ecosystem of products. By the way, ecosystem is next month's theme. So you guys are actually perfectly bridging dual use with ecosystem month because you've created your own entire ecosystem when it comes to situational awareness,
Mhm.
I think is the best term. And then, it includes mitigation piece of that when needed. So much has happened with Dedrone over the past year, Josh. As you look ahead, we're now closing out the year as well, right? We're getting to the end of 2024. As you look ahead to 2025, what do you see on the horizon for Dedrone by Axon?
Yeah, I see. I think I'd indicated this on the call earlier in the month, but I would say a dramatic pickup in the speed or the velocity of adoption of counter drone technology throughout law enforcement agencies. As I indicated, it's clearly Dedrone's been growing exponentially, so we've obviously been penetrating into the market and getting customers to bring this on board. But I think having those doors open and with the partnership of Axon and already being extremely trusting with those products working well for them, it'll open up opportunities and doors for us to go in, educate the market more, and put our tools in more places. So I think that if I had to say pick a number, and this is completely out of my hat, not supported by any data, but I'd say like 3 to 4 out of every 10 agencies are probably taking this seriously at this moment. Maybe last year that would be a correct number. I see it exponentially going up to 7, 8 out of 10 agencies, and then I think a really big one, as I've mentioned a couple of times. I know I say I'm excited. It's not fake. I really, really are excited about this FAA approval. This Dedrone Beyond visual line of sight is going to be such a game changer rolling into these next years. As I indicated, it's going to be quite crazy when you're rolling down to the office or driving down the street and you see a few different drones buzzing each way, and knowing that's law enforcement or someone doing that. And then, like you mentioned, on the utilities and the other applications, being able to do some of those beyond visual line of sight flights are going to be a real enabler for these agencies.
Yeah, and God willing, the FAA really will publish that Part 108 rule, and the beyond visual line of sight will truly become unlocked. And then this new product of yours, I see it flying off the shelves, my friend. So I think 2025 year will be a big year for Dedrone by Axon, as well as we're hoping for the entire industry, right? So
Absolutely.
more to follow there. But Josh, we're getting to the end of our time here, so I want to give you a minute or so just to give us any concluding remarks, and please, please, please include in there how folks can learn more about Dedrone by Axon or how they can reach you.
Yes. So ultimately, Dedrone.com is a fantastic website, a lot of content that our marketing team works extremely hard to produce and put together. So I think starting there, you can see our solutions. We have the ability, if you are maybe an agency or a corporation or an individual that wants to see if maybe we have citywide connect or networks over you, you can go in, put your address or your zip code in. It'll quickly tell you if we have coverage. We created a new drone public safety analytics database that just got sprung up last week that I think is very insightful. You can go in and learn about, I think, over 900,000 violations last year that we managed or watched over.
God.
I know. And I just, I'd welcome you if this is something that you've either at one point dipped your toe into and looked at as an agency or as an individual, or maybe you have tools already or had a bad experience. I invite you to reach out to us. We're going to be very candid and tell you our experience with probably those same exact tools that you had your experience with, and try to give you a very earnest and straightforward approach to how you can manage your airspace. And then lastly, I'd say, on the culture side, as you indicated, we got that nice award on, very good or happy place to work. We are exploding as a company. We are hiring left and right, more on the engineering side, if I'm being earnest, and AI and ML. But if there's anyone that you guys know of or anybody listening to the call that is in search of employment and looking for a exploding company that is going to see rapid change and you like working in that environment, which I definitely do myself, I invite you to check out Dedrone.com and go to our job listings page. Great environment, culture is extremely important to us, and we have a lot of fun doing what we do.
Well, awesome. I mean, clearly your passion for what you do, Josh, it's palpable. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for taking the time today to share with us all what Dedrone has been up to and what we can expect going forward. It's been an education for me. I've always heard about you, but honestly, I didn't know a ton. And I've been to a lot of events, and I've seen your booths, and I've run into some of your folks. And so this was awesome. Really appreciate you. Glad to finally have you on the show. And yeah, have a great rest of the year. And thank you everybody out there for watching today. We appreciate you as well. The show would not be possible without our viewers, of course. And we are out here.